Welcome to our channel, Name to be Determined. I'm Natalie. And
I'm
this
Mike.
is my brother, Michael. And I'm coming to you from Iceland, and Mike's in Minnesota. And we are going to play through some God of War Nordic lore. I did a reaction video to some different clips from the game for Gameology. And a lot of people suggested that I should play the game and actually, get to understand the storyline a little bit better. Mike has played the game before and the one before it, and he is going to be filling me in on the narrative and the different characters and stuff. And we're going to just go through the whole thing. So this is the first segment. So let's do it.
So this is Kratos. He's not in any Nordic lore, but he is the main character of the video game series God of War. He comes from Greece. He's originally a Spartan. He's a demigod, son of Zeus, and he was a Spartan general for a time and conquered all sorts of enemies and things like that. Eventually, at some point, he was very close to dying in a battle, and he called upon Ares at the time to grant him strength. So Ares took it upon himself to essentially force Kratos into servitude, and Kratos spread destruction and death in Ares' name. One of the things that happened, and one of the reasons why Kratos is so pale, is Ares tricked him into killing his wife and daughter, which had a major impact on Ares. Ares had thought that it would sort of strip out the last remnants of Kratos' humanity from him, but instead it backfired, essentially, and Kratos got very upset and sort of vowed that he was going to kill Ares. So over the course of the original three games, Kratos essentially goes through and exacts his revenge on the gods, and essentially kills the entire Greek pantheon. And we find our way here to Midgard. There's some story between his time in Greece and when he comes here to Midgard. I'm not familiar with that part of the lore, but that's his background, basically. He was the god of war after he killed Ares, went through and killed the remaining Greek pantheon and most of the Titans, and essentially destroyed Greece.
He's a demigod, or has he become a god?
He's a full god, and he took the power.
Okay, and who's the kid?
So he's in Midgard. So Kratos, obviously, he's the big guy, and then we've got this Atreus, who we've never met before.
Oh, okay.
But Atreus is his son. That he had with his wife, who we don't meet, but we get to know a lot about just through stories, and you can kind of see what's going to happen here once we get back to their house.
Okay.
So they live in Midgard.
Live in Midgard,
in a forest.
Yeah. Okay. Midgard, of course, that would make sense. Realm of
yeah,
humans and all.
they're really isolated from just about everything. Not much contact with other people or anything like that.
The graphics are so beautiful in this game.
So Kratos doesn't really talk about his past or what he is. So Atreus has no idea that his father is the Greek god of war.
Okay.
And extremely powerful.
What are his recollections of his mom and sister?
I don't think he has a sister.
Oh, wait, I thought you said he had a sister. Okay.
So he met Atreus's mom, I think, after he left Greece, after he destroyed Greece completely.
Okay. I'm seeing now that there's some critical elements to this general story that would have been helpful to know, and I'm glad that I'm... Yeah.
So his wife had marked these specific trees with the handprint that you can see, and asked him to chop them down after she died to light her funeral pyre. Okay. So that's what we were just getting back from doing.
It's got runic tattoos, it looks like, of some kind. I know the person that did the consultation for the runes for this game, actually.
There's a lot of runes. I'm going to try my best to find them all. A lot of them are hidden quite well, so it can be a little bit of a challenge, but it's certainly important for the lore and the mythology. So
yeah, I know that they really did. They did a huge amount of research for this game, and they consulted a lot of people in the field who are experts in history and mythology and runes and things like that. So, and language too.
It's kind of a unique take. Once we start meeting some of the other gods. As you'll see, one thing that's interesting is that Atreus, like I said, does not know that his dad Kratos is a god, but he routinely displays immense amount of strength and combat prowess and durability. Kind of a interesting mechanic about the game is the codex that Atreus keeps.
It's in like a manuscript?
It's more of like a journal, I would say. So he keeps notes on enemies you face, bosses, different lore points like Jotnar runes and shrines and things like that. But it's in his perspective, so it's kind of interesting that to get his reaction.
I like that, like call back to medieval material culture with codex. Obviously, a codex meaning book, manuscript. Usually, I like that. It's a nice, good old-fashioned funeral pyre going here.
I'm sorry.
Squeeze.
So one interesting thing about this is Kratos and Atreus don't have the most loving relationship.
Okay.
I think he still has a lot of issues from his time in Greece. Yeah, exactly. So he's initially very cold towards Atreus.
Sure.
Now.
Yeah, he looks absolutely haunted.
Yeah, he's done a lot of bad things.
What are we hunting?
You are hunting deer. In the direction of deer.
I'll keep looking.
So one of the things that Kratos' wife had asked is after she died, that he and Atreus take her remains to a mountain, the highest mountain in the realm.
Okay.
So when he references this journey, the mountain, that's what it is referencing there.
Does the mountain have a name?
More tracks?
Not that we know of yet.
But they're too round.
We'll find out a lot more.
Good. This way, boy.
So what is the significance with the deer with the antlers? I know in another game, Valheim, there is a deer boss that looks very similar. I don't know if that's
There are some deer in Norse mythology that are said to sort of like be chewing away at the foliage of Yggdrasil, the world tree. So they're among the many different animals that are described as kind of like in various ways eating away at the tree. So you have the serpents at the bottom, and then you have Ratatusk, the squirrel that's running up and down, and then you have these stags as well who are eating away at the foliage. So the tree's like kind of under this sort of constant threat from its inhabitants.
Only fire.
I don't know why it has blue
anger
antlers.
issues.
Yeah, he does.
Well, do not be sorry. Be better.
He's harsh. Ooh.
No! You are not ready! Stay back!
What happened to
combat?
that?
The combat in all these games is really pretty brutal.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of the hallmarks of the games is how violent they are.
So what is he fighting right now?
He's fighting Draugr right now.
Oh, draugar. Okay. Oh, those
There you
are
go.
okay. Yeah. So those are like from throughout, like beyond the mythology too. I can talk a little bit about those if you.
I mean, they're one of the main enemies you face throughout the game.
Hey.
There's different variations on
I mean,
them, and
like they're basically like kind of like zombies, but they're much more aware. It's not as though they're walking around aimlessly or with no sense of what they're doing. They're just basically the living dead. Typically, they're people that were not really great in life. Like there were people who were often kind of nuisances in some way in life, and they kind of haunt the living. Let's see.
so here's the codex.
Okay. But their souls were too stubborn and angry to stop. Okay, that's consistent. They'll fight off the Valkyrie. Okay, I'm not totally sure that that's consistent. I mean, one thing about what we're doing here is I will never claim to have like all of the knowledge and have everything totally at my fingertips. But the Draugar are known more for their appearances in saga literature, and typically they sort of haunt people. A really famous depiction is from the saga of Grettir the Strong, and he has this famous wrestling match with a draugar named Glaumr.
It's really fascinating. You do encounter Valkyries in this game as well. You fight them.
You fight them?
To why. Yep, it's kind of an interesting story as to why.
Okay.
They're very difficult enemies. When we get to one, we can go over that.
Yeah.
Mom told me never to go in there.
It's pretty interesting how they deploy the Valkyries in this game.
Yeah.
Can I have my bow back now?
I wonder why everything in
Can you hit it from here?
Midgard is sort of in ruins.
We should get
Yeah, they
closer.
don't really talk about that. You don't really encounter, much of anyone who isn't hostile.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like totally deserted, almost. Like,
Why now?
yeah, so they're essentially like the reanimated corpses, essentially, is what they are. And there's some sagas, like some of the more fantastical ones, where they're like reanimated to be like soldiers, basically.
Were they kind of like fairy tale type things used to scare children?
I don't know. I mean, they do show up kind of in some later folklore. Like, they continue on beyond the medieval sources into folklore.
So the more you fight enemies, the more information you get in the codex.
Okay.
So you can see here he's adding some detail on that they're not particularly skilled
Okay.
in battle.
Yeah, no, I'd be really
Right,
interested.
things-
Like, if anybody knows why it's like deserted, we'd be curious to know in the comments, because it's them and the draugar are like the only ones we've seen so far in Midgard, right?
Yep. Kratos has an enchanted axe that he got
Okay.
from his wife, and you'll meet, I believe, the guys who forged it at some point in the
It's a
future.
little bit like Thor's hammer, because Thor's hammer had that kind of boomerang effect in the mythology. There's a ton of axe heads that survived from the Viking Age. Like, obviously not really bow and arrow, because
can
those
no
were made of
longer
wood.
use it.
So,
We
and same
can.
with the handles of the axes. But a lot of axe heads survived. Like, if you go to National Museum of Denmark or the ones in Sweden or Norway, you can see a lot of those.
The game really encourages you to explore every nook and cranny, because
That's awesome.
there's a lot of secrets and hidden lore. This
like
is one of the
that.
Jotnar shrines here
Here.
with some of the ruins.
Boy,
Oh, okay.
Look, it's Skull and Hati, the giant wolves
Oh,
who chase
yeah.
the sun and moon.
There we
Where
go.
did they come from? How did they get up there? What's happening there at the end? They eat the sun and moon? And then everybody fights?
A little reference to Ragnarok there. Yeah, so that's going to happen, like, at the end of time. It's an explanation. The sun and the moon they ride around in chariots, and they're being chased by those two wolves and catching them. And everybody fights. It sounds so innocent.
You can see there's Jormungandr on the left there.
Ooh. So you said that those are Jotnar?
Yep.
What are the Jotnar? What they opened?
The shrines.
shrines, okay.
There are no Jotnar. I apologize for not pronouncing it correctly, but there are no Jotnar left, as far as we know at this time. There's really not anybody left.
Interesting.
As we were talking about earlier.
What happened?
A lot of this is deserted.
Is this post Ragnarok?
No.
Father,
Okay.
look.
wait for my mark.
So one of the things I do love
Relax.
about mythology
Do
and
not
different
think of
takes
it
on
as an
mythology
animal.
is that all of it
clear your
is
mind.
essentially
Steady your
like an
aim
interpretation,
and breathe in.
because even the mythological sources that we have weren't written down till like 200 to 300 years after the stories that they're actually describing. It was oral
Before-
tradition, because they had runes as a writing
Still
system,
alive.
but they weren't used for any sort of long narrative purposes. And so most of these
Life.
stories, these myths, were composed orally, and then they were transmitted orally for like 200 to 300 years.
No.
And in the meantime,
Finish what you
Christianization came, the Latin alphabet came, and that's what enabled them to actually write these things down. So a lot of these myths, all of the myths, were written down after a new religious system had taken hold, often by monks and priests. So you always have this kind of filter that you're viewing the myths through, which is why, like, I've never been somebody who, is a real stickler for, like, a true or accurate representation of a myth, because even the oldest myths that we have written down are interpretations from 200 to 300 years later.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if we were finally writing down something that had been originally composed orally in the 1700s and had only been passed down orally without ever having been written down. There's bound to be lots of change and for, you know, completely different audience, different religious system. I think that makes it a really cool source material for like movie creators, game creators to draw from. What have we here?
So this is a troll.
Okay. His name is Dauði Kaupmaðr. Yeah, dead merchant. I have some thoughts too about the fact that his father is a god. We can return to that. I wonder why his name is Death Merchant or Dead Merchant.
So there's other trolls throughout the game too that you can face, and they all have interesting names, if I recall.
Yeah, I mean, the word truth in Old Norse is like pretty like, you know, there's no doubt about it being like a name for an enemy or something bad or like a monster. It doesn't ever have good connotation. Okay, we're back to draugr.
Yep.
Yeah, they're a lot more zombie-like. But again, like, what we have come down to us about them is a lot more from the saga literature than...
More draugr.
Yep. Yeah, they're in the saga of King Rolf, which is kind of like the Old Norse version of Beowulf. Odin makes some appearances in that saga. But there's like a whole army of draugar that... are raised in that one. So it's one of these like myth-adjacent works. It's a good saga. I love the Mjolnir like quality of his axe.
Yeah.
And that's likely, I mean, people like the most average warrior would have had an axe because it's like one of these all-purpose things. It's your tool. It's, you know, you can use it for chopping down trees and for doing various farming tasks. And if you need to, for self-defense. Like a more like high-class warrior would have that plus also like a sword or something like that as well.
Okay.
And defensive equipment and helmet and maybe chainmail and that kind of thing.
A helmet with large horns coming out of it, right?
Of course, exactly. That's how the story goes.
So,
okay.
Yeah, we got more to come. There's the next episode. We're gonna meet the main antagonist of this game. You're going to know who he is, but at this time of the game, we don't. So I won't spoil anything. But yeah, it's a lot more gameplay to come, a lot of lore, a lot of mythology, and a lot of like great story.
I want to know why Midgard is like deserted.
It's been a few years since I've played. So
yeah,
like you said, if anyone knows, please put it down in the comments and enlighten us.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's anything like in particular that I'm not shy about admitting when I don't know something or don't remember something. And I can always, you know, go back and look something up. Thanks to everybody who suggested we do this.
Yeah.
And
thanks for watching.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.